Right, Panthers, listen up.
Most people, I would say, unless you're really in this field, you do not go to these performances. Mm-hmm. So we're actually dealing with a larger cultural problem of what is culture, what is representation, what is image, and what is society and culture doing about it. It's really problematic because in the 70s we have the dream of how radical we could be and how open we were. And now it seems to be à la mode to be conservative in a way, to be right-wing, to be politically right-wing, to be socially right-wing. And I think that I would basically tell the new board of directors in the Festivalthema and the new Springdance, come on, open up, invite pop figures, invite Ali B, invite bus costers. I mean, bring in the horrible pop mediatic reality and let's find a new way in that, rather than us being insulated.
The problem is, and that goes a bit into the direction with what Ibrahim was just saying, that we have to deal with the situation that we don't have one audience, because what you're pointing as is a bit still this idea of, you have this one homogeneous audience who loves to go to theater or to dance or to perform into the museum and is open and curious and sort of is triggered basically by curiosity. And from our experience, from how we have to promote ourselves, how we deal with audiences, it's not at all like this. It's we face a situation where people are overwhelmed by complexity in daily life complexity, where their viewing experience in the majority of cases comes from television, where they have very kind of cliche ideas about what contemporary art is. I mean, a lot of remarks I get, for example, when people hear I do something with dance, they say, "Oh, is this kind of, so you think you can dance?"
Oh, yeah. It is a pity to me that certain aspects of contemporary culture are far more progressive in its ability to gain audiences than other aspects of it. And I think that when we look at contemporary visual arts or film, it's far more accessible. It's not that films are more accessible or that the visual arts are more accessible. It's just that the social value is much greater. So I think that the problem Springdance and other festivals are having is that in our society of today, in the West, we don't play, and the East as well. I mean, East is forget, it's another zone. We're not even going to go there. Yeah. But in the West, where I live, where I'm part of, as a Western guy, alienated though I am, there is a real problem of how to deal with the contemporaneity of bodies and how to present it in a way where we are not constantly looking at bravado, where we are not constantly looking at the balletic poses, where we are not constantly referring to Pina Bausch, where we are not constantly referring to Trisha Brown and Forsyth and God knows what else. There's nothing wrong with it, but the point is that there's a constant reference to the past, and I think that it is a bit unhealthy. Even though I believe in
primary school, secondary school, there is a lot of emphasis on literature. How do we read literature? There's also some emphasis on films, but the whole kind of media literacy, so the kind of literacy, the mode of reading or the mode of experiencing is not really highlighted for the kind of performing arts. And I think this is actually a really big challenge for primary and secondary schools to take up, to develop some kind of curriculum in which these kids can be acquainted with different kind of media that they can understand and then read, because otherwise you get what we were kind of talking about, this very kind of generalized black and white understanding of what art is and what dance and performance can be. And of course you could also say, but isn't it great that shows like So You Think You Can Dance popularize the idea of dance?
Themselves, like where do I place myself, not as imago, but where do I want my work to show up, and where do I want to engage with an audience? And I do respect people that have a problem there, but they will have to find a way around it then. If they don't want to go to the Node or to some kind of interactive performance, then they have to find another way. I mean, it's an obligation, and I actually, as a dramaturg, I find it interesting.
Yeah. I would also say that once you look at it purely from a PR point of view, something goes already wrong.
Yes,
Because
it is.
you know, if you speaking about I think artists and sort of institution is also two different things. Because we as an institution, of course, we have to be concerned with PR in a pure also in terms of marketing strategies, etc., etc. But that's something else. That's about selling tickets. That's about being obliged to reach certain audience numbers, etc., etc. But you know, as an artist, I think however, you know, whatever kind of art you're doing and whatever form you're choosing, however, you have to acknowledge in which society you work, and however you have to relate to it. I mean, of course, in the end, you can also decide and say, I stay on my island, you know, I sort of...
The world can go fuck itself.
Whatever, but you know, that's I think a decision that everybody has to kind of take for him or herself. But I think...
We're constantly talking about younger generation, but how many people are here that are of younger generation? How many of us are here of younger generation? Mm-hmm. I think there's a real problem when we talk about art in general. It's not just education, as you both pointed out, but you know, I don't think we are always devising strategies how to get younger people interested, how to choreograph for them, how to work for them. All these education, financial models are based on this. And it's a good way of artists to earn money, I agree. But there is a limit to it, you know, come on. Because it's clear the so-called younger generation doesn't give a fuck. And this is really a problem. And I think the reason they don't give a fuck is because society as a whole doesn't give a fuck. We have a much larger...
Those days there were these philosophers, mostly white men, and they would just do theory, and no one would ask them, why are you doing what you're doing? Please explain in a short statement of about one paragraph to a wider audience what you are doing. No one would ever ask that, and now that's getting a lot more kind of current.
Well, just one example from reality. I think that was my second job in a theater in Germany. I was also in a team of dramaturgs. We were, I think, 5, and one of this was a philosopher who was just there to think. So he had no other obligation. He could show up when he wanted.
That's conceptual.
No, that's reality.
No, really. I mean, he was still is brilliant thinker. He was just there to feed us with ideas. Yeah. And if I would come up with a proposal like this, you know, to say, I want somebody in my team who is just paid for thinking. This is nowadays that's absolutely not possible.
Even in Germany.
No, even in Germany, not. No, really, it's true what you say. You know, you have to be economical.
It's too
it has to be efficient.
Are we now complaining and complaining? Or
okay, let's.
Right, Panthers, listen up.